Welcome everyone, and thank you for taking the time today joining us on this webinar with the following title, Work Smarter and Transform Your Creative Operation. It is organized by Henry Stewart Event and part of the duo on-air DALIM Software weekly webinar series. My name is Isabelle Billerey Rayel and I am the European Business Development Director at DALIM Software GmbH. During this difficult time of COVID-19 pandemic, DALIM Software is organizing weekly webinar with main subject, do more with less. Each webinar is jam-packed with knowledgeable presentation from inspirational guest speaker and best practice methodology by worldwide experts. We find ourselves strengthened by the very positive feedback we had so far and invite you to join the last episode of Season 1, Print Drive America, taking place next week on the 5th of May at 5 p.m. CET time before Season 2 starts the week after. Now a little bit of housekeeping. You can see on the screen the Go to Webinar panel, a section where you can ask questions. Please submit any question that you may have during the session using this panel. We will answer to as many of these questions at the end of the presentation. Let's come back to our today's subject, work smarter and transform your creative operation. It's time to start. So during today's webinar, we will investigate opportunities for automation and the role that DAM plays in helping to manage and transform your creative operations. You will hear from two industry veterans on how automation together with collaborative work play a critical role in reducing time to market and operational costs. In this time of COVID-19 pandemic, we are all experiencing that connection of people, of data, of every facet of work flowing through the enterprise is even more important than before. We are all looking for the best-in-class solution that power remote teams, enable collaborative work and keep productivity high. But how making sure it will be adopted by your team? Today, we will try to give you the best guideline to remove barrier and onboard people. And to conclude, we will investigate the way to measure the progress and to try to identify tangible ROI. To help us answering those questions today, we have the great pleasure to welcome first Mark Maguire. Mark is a production director at SDL plc, a global leader in content creation, translation and delivery. Mark is responsible for deploying marketing and production technology used by both internally as well as for client-facing application. His previous role was at Williams Lee Tag as production and operation director. We will also welcome Florent Epaud. Florent is the founder of InPagina. InPagina is a production house specialized in data publishing. He spent his last 15 years automating a wide variety of marketing production projects for both digital and print campaigns. He now holds the role of Solution Project Manager at DALIM Software. Let's now try to identify the challenges creative teams are facing. One of the first challenges is that production budgets are flat and shrinking, where brands are adding customer and audience data, discovering new audience insight, and having to advertise across an ever increasing number of formats and channels. It is a real race to deliver meaningful, impactful message at scale. Additionally, production expectations and constraints can change between days and nights. It is also more true during this very moment. Many brands had to post campaign, scrap previously produced creative assets, and quickly create a whole new campaign in response, while the team organization was totally modified, everybody having to work remotely or simply not available. All of this is amplified by the fact that many organizations are still working in silos, involving a lack of information flow between departments and serves a lack of agility to adapt. Due to this factor, creative teams struggle to keep up with speed, efficiency, relevancy, and quality. A recent study conducted by Forrester Consulting highlights the impact that automation of creative content creation would have for different cases. From a general perspective, it is clear that automation of creative ops would have a real benefit for each of the different cases, ranging from process improvements, increase of volume of campaign, improvement on validation process, or increase of speed of creative development, the score is more than 81%. Based on this study, it is thus clear that automation can play a fundamental role to help creative teams to be more efficient. But now let's move to real life and discover together with Mark how working smart and transforming creative operation. Hi, Mark. Thank you for being with us today. It's over to you now.
Hi, Isabelle. Can you hear me?
Yes, perfect.
Great. Okay. Thanks for the introduction. I must admit, I haven't been called a veteran before, but maybe
sorry, but you are.
Maybe I'd like to shake the beard. Yeah. Mark Maguire, the production director at SDL, in a fairly newish division called Marketing Solutions, which has been going about 4 years or so. So my role in that division is to look at the marketing technology that we use in the business, both for internal use and obviously how we collaborate with our clients. So effectively looking at the people, process and technology. My background, I started in magazine publishing, then started working closely with the national newspapers and spent 16 years or so in my previous role at TAG Worldwide as production and operations director. So yeah, DALIM asked me today to provide some insights on certainly just my experience, I guess my opinion, and of how I've managed automation projects both today and in the past. I must put it out there, I'm absolutely not a developer. My team will tell you that. The closest I've got to it was basic at school. So yeah, that's definitely not me. But what I am is probably more of a facilitator. So someone who perhaps challenges the status quo, asks the question, can we? Or simply just try to find solutions that challenge, to the challenges of volumes and deadlines which we all face today, and probably just keep thinking about, how we could work smarter. So a little bit about SDL. Maybe many people in this community may not have heard of us as a company. It's quite a stealthy company in that respect. And I guess simply put, we help companies create, translate and deliver content. So I've been at the business probably nearly 3 years now, and I must admit I'm still learning, still meeting people I haven't met. It's quite an expansive business, 25 years or plus doing its core, which is translation. But like most companies, has grown either organically, through innovation, or indeed acquisitions have increased the size of our business. Some of those acquisitions have brought technology, others have brought key services. So SDL acquired Donnelly Language Services in 2018. That certainly strengthened our regulated industries and life sciences capabilities. We probably have some of the most advanced language tech out there. Certainly the majority of the freelance translator community will know, heard of, and certainly been using our technology. And incidentally, Isabelle just mentioned COVID-19, which I guess had to come up somewhere. Since that hit, SDL has certainly had its busiest month on record in the month of March, where we've been helping our clients deliver the messages that clearly we're all listening to in various different shapes and forms during these very difficult and very surreal times, to be honest. So it's fair to say that we have a good coverage of brands across all sectors, so a very privileged client portfolio. Our touch points might be just translation, might be just transcreation, or just technology. or a combination of all the above, really. So some of our clients have our technology on premise for security reasons. Others are quite happy to use our cloud services. And I guess the key service for us is the technology and very sophisticated machine translation tools that are supplanted, I should say, by translation memories, term bases, and certainly an extensive range of talent carrying out post-editing services and linguistic review. So apart from translation technology, we also have a very powerful CMS, which is called Trillion Sites. You might typically put that up against the likes of Sitecore. And lastly, we build and support our own technology, but equally we're very focused on connecting our platforms to, connecting our technology to other platforms, and we probably have 50 or 70 connectors to all the usual suspects like Adobe AM, Marketo, etc. So, automation. Just to be clear, I'm talking about automation in the production environment, and I'm certainly not talking about building full-blown apps. And the word automation, I think, like digital, covers a lot of meaning in people's minds. From my experience and in the early days, I remember automation starting with scripts running on Macs and PCs and Unix boxes and Linux boxes. But of course, that carried with it some limitations of scale and certainly consistency. So I guess as networks really started to improve and SaaS came along, it certainly helped us to centralize those solutions and clearly make them accessible to all our production teams and provide a consistent performance. And recently we've seen the emergence of connector platforms, and these platforms have hit the market, allowing codeless integrations. So in other words, trying to make it much simpler to connect up those technology stacks and exchange data. And certainly, they have a place in the market today. They may not provide the richest experience of a raw API, but they certainly have their place. So when I think about automation, for me, the key thing is people, people, people. I have to say, I had a great team around me at TAG. Some of those individuals are still there. And I'm very lucky to have some of those individuals alongside me here at SDL. These individuals I call technical production people. They're hybrids in my mind, because they have an understanding of what the end users are doing, because typically they've come from those backgrounds, but also they can visualize how to solve a problem technically. So having the right team around you is key when you start going into the business to engage on projects. So the second part of the people is finding people who accept there's a problem to solve in the first place. And whilst that might seem a little bit of a paradox, it's actually a real world challenge. If we talk about production, some people will probably see repetition or data entry as a project manager as part of their role, or even their job description, and I'm talking indirectly, of course. Other teams come and ask for help. That's because the deadlines are getting shorter, the volumes of work are increasing, and potentially there's been quite a depletion of resources. And I think, as Isabelle alluded to, we know the industry is really toughened up in terms of price points. And certainly in our industry, peaks and troughs has always been the perennial challenge for many years. So when you start engaging with those teams, of course, about automating and potentially removing a component of their work, it can lead to a little bit of insecurity creeping in. Justifying the timesheet in crude terms, maybe, in some organizations. that can also generate the wrong culture. But I think honestly, I think most people can probably articulate where the time is actually lost in their day job. And if they feel encouraged or incentivized, as it were, to speak up and give them a voice and a platform, you know, that can change very quickly. I'm certainly not going to cover the change management approach because I think that absolutely is a topic in its own right. Taking on a project, well, once you've got your team lined up and you've got certainly a problem that's been brought to attention to fix, mapping out the as-is process is certainly key, and that is in some respects a lot harder than it seems, because before you get to the art of the possible, you might have an idea and envisage what good looks like, but you also need to have a champion in the team that helps with that process, and that champion working with that technical production team can certainly help funnel the ideas and help define the solution. And from that, you know, the key is pulling out the real pain points and then prioritizing those pain points. So I've always found that carrying out some sort of light touch time and motion study that would give that indicative ROI will certainly help people see some of the benefits. And ostensibly, I guess if you're having to build a business case internally or show there's a reason to change how we do it today, let's not kid ourselves, that may take some investment, and that investment may be people and time, or it may be some software, some technology. So one of the ways maybe to sort of look at how you break that down, if you're in a fortunate position, because I think you're in a fortunate position if you've got lots of people come into the center of the organization, you know, maybe that operational excellence team with requests on, you know, can I do this, can I do that, how do I do this, then suddenly you get into the right place. And by maybe having some sort of criteria for what you're looking for and what you're trying to achieve, so in other words, looking for those levers of what's important, you know, is key. So is it speed? Is it quality? And I must admit, for the people that know me very well, and they know the answer I always like from the dev team, and it's always that will take a few days or a week. You know, remember, we're not building applications here. We're building solutions to a current process, potentially, or a new piece of business, or a new work stream. But really something where there's technology already in place today and plugging the gaps for our own teams. So I suppose importantly, either working back from what the client wants or working from the inside out, somewhere there's a meeting in the middle. So if some of those projects are and need a small amount of development, and I'm up, you know, instead of months of development, that feels like a much quicker win, much quicker deployment. So I guess if you're trying to build something really, really complex and catering for every eventuality, suddenly it becomes designed by a committee. Everyone wants to get involved. You know, there can be lots of reasons not to change. And then suddenly, you know, the inertia starts to get killed, the momentum starts to fall off, and the whole ethos of, that wasn't for you, Tony Collard, of the get stuff done mentality, you know, starts to fall away. So if you're in the position of trying to do that stuff, and then you're trying to secure budget for those internal optimization programs, which is, let's be honest, is always a difficult sell in comparison to a revenue generating opportunity, especially at the moment when most companies scrutinize non-revenue generating resources in the business. That's a challenge today. Even more so if you're considering outsourcing that development to a third party in terms of cost, which of course is very transparent for the business to sign off. And that's where the ROI becomes key. So for me, when I take all those slides into account above and what I've just said, finding the sweet spot in the middle is something that I've always enjoyed. Finding out if a problem is actually worth solving. One of the biggest challenges I must admit I took on was taking a contract for 5,000 ads a week, and that had a 1 hour and a 4 hour deadline. Unfortunately, it was me who said yes to the client. So I remember coming in the cab, coming back thinking, how am I going to tell the team we've actually got to deliver this now? And when I arrived back in and we all got together and there was a number of people there, I remember the first thing I said is, well, forget 5,000 job bags a week sitting under on desks. We got a whiteboard this one. And it had to be a fully digital and automated process between us and the client. And sure enough, we delivered that. So when I was trawling the internet looking for a quote around automation, I found this one. And for me, I must admit, it really resonates, because what might seem a very easy application for automation, certainly internally even, actually might turn into something much more complicated during that discovery, especially when you start talking to all the people in the process who, it turns out, all seem to be working in different ways. And that flow chart that was on the wall from 2 years ago, either some people have never seen it, never looked at it, or certainly have joined the business and been put in the chair from day one and started working. So, you know, I think I have a lot of empathy for people in the business, whether they're project managers or operators who are trying to deal with day-to-day work and with the change on top of that as well. So why DALIM? I probably have been using DALIM for 25 years, dare I say. And DALIM really, in the print and publishing business, was the go-to platform for myself and peers. If you took the power of combining so many workflows with numerous branches, was definitely the key to managing volume production business. And DALIM, you know, can either be right at the centric of what you're doing, or it can play a peripheral role. And I guess what we're actually talking about in principle is triggers and actions. Certainly the strength of the application has always been, and still is today, file management, distribution, FTP, DAM, renaming files, content format changes and adaptions, pushing files to color management solutions, the review and approve tools. You know, they're all core competencies of certainly of the software. And latterly now, you know, we've got metadata-driven workflows, which are starting to certainly change the way we work in a different way. And as web and social content has started to explode, you know, the products had to move with the times. So having a centralized solution that's modular, that's scalable is key. Having a good API, an open one, that lets us to connect to multiple solutions is also certainly a key consideration. And the flexibility of hosting, because I think the industry now is certainly today with what's been going on, as you know, the last 2 years really been looking at those hybrid and SaaS models and trying to get the best out of both worlds. And so if you have got a solution that can span those two environments with a strong API to orchestrate that workflow and organize and manipulate your assets, you're starting to get into the right place. So for me, APIs are the lifeblood of automation. They have to be modern, they have to be open. And you know, I've talked to many vendors about opening up more and more of their APIs, because that allows us to do a lot more with them. And one of the areas that SDL have been working with DALIM on is, and it's certainly an area for us that's exploded, is subtitling. So transcribing and translating content for broadcast or social channels is certainly a big area for us. So bringing subtitles into the content approval process is something that we certainly requested. But I will say it's fair to say that SDL are probably not using DALIM to the extent and complexity of other organisations who do far more with it than we do. And that's because, of course, you know, we have many other technologies in SDL that are already in play. So when I start to think about a couple of examples, and these are really simple examples, and actually just a 2,000 feet view example. One of them that sprang to mind when Isabelle asked me was around subtitling, actually. We had a client that was giving us hundreds of movies to subtitle across tens of languages. Each of those projects were tendered, so it wasn't contracted work with forecasted volumes across the year. And actually, this is where the team came to us and said, you know, is there a better way of doing this? Because the manual process looks something like this. So Excel spreadsheets applied by the client. It was a very good spreadsheet, by the way. It's beautifully presented. URL to the videos, all the metadata that you need to carry out the project. So our team would go, you know, to the URLs that were given, download those files, analyze the videos, you know, the frame rates, the durations, the codecs, and, you know, compare that to the info in the Excel, create and folder them up and rename the files as requested, and then watermark them for security. And so that ingest process, if you will, was really, you know, really labor intensive for us. So again, it wasn't a regular type of work, but we thought, well, what's the quickest way of trying to handle that? So, you know, the team looked at it and came back with a solution, and that solution was take the same Excel, albeit we were quite lucky because the client didn't always change the format of it, and if they did, it was minimal. So we created a hot folder for the project managers. We took that same Excel, dropped it into the hot folder, and then DALIM ES would go and download those videos automatically. It would analyze those files and create a HTML file which had the metadata that it pulled out, so the bit rates, the durations, the encoding. It would automatically watermark those videos frame by frame with a lovely SDL logo across the middle and with some of that metadata, like the time codes. Rename them as per the list provided with the language codes and the frame rate. For some reason, still not quite sure why they wanted that. And create the files and folders and get them all organized into source files, watermark files, and the analysis file. So now packaged up and ready for production. So if I think about that, you know, the time that saved us, on some projects it might have only been an hour. In some projects it might have been 3 or 4 hours. So it certainly was a really simple way of solving an immediate problem. And for me, that's what automation is all about. Finding simple solutions to solve immediate problems. And then, of course, there's the ones where you've got volume and predictability that take, you know, a much more complex approach. And the other one, which you guys and probably this community are very familiar with, and certainly everyone's doing this in some shape or form, was around producing PDFs in workflows. Now, SDL is, in marketing solutions at least, is a Workfront user and a partner of Workfront in marketing solutions. And we seem to have a lot of mutual clients that are using Workfront and some of our own technology at the same time. And in this particular example, what we wanted to do is really push Workfront really as a SaaS application and then find ways to effectively generate those PDFs in a different way. To way maybe we would have done it in the past with DALIM, but still using DALIM at the centre. So effectively entering those projects into Workfront, using again those statuses and triggers to generate file structures, and then using those custom forms to actually put in some of that metadata that's going to drive those workflows, so that when we were uploading the PDFs, it was actually honouring the specs and the output intents and the colour spaces, producing a file for proofing if and when we ever needed it. That's obviously less prevalent today. And then pushing it onto Workfront for approval and onto the various stakeholders. So again, a very simple way of doing something, but that takes some research it takes some time, and having people in your business that can spend that time, who can step back outside of production and look at those solutions, is for me what businesses should be investing in. So if I start to think about summarizing automation, I've always said bank all the savings and bank them in the right increments. So if you're saving a minute, bank it. If it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So in other words, create a real-time report that's monitoring and recording those transactions, because then you've got live data you can track. And I've always thought that if you look after the minutes, you know, they'll look after the hours. So get people thinking about current problems and what those solutions might be, and then prioritize the low-hanging fruit. But I will say, you know, whatever you do, it doesn't come without maintenance. So you will need a continuous improvement program to support those connectors, those scripts, whatever you've done to automate something. Things change, the process might change, the versions of the applications get changed and updated. So, you know, there's always something to maintain there, by the way. So you get the benefit, but there is a cost that obviously comes with maintaining it. And perhaps I've started to really think now over the last couple of years that most companies need and should have some form of innovation lab in all our organizations. And it's certainly something in SDL that I'm pushing for amongst, you know, the list of other priorities and initiatives we've got certainly running today. So finally, my take on it is keep it simple, because you'll never get started. Build a mock-up of what something might look like first before you certainly commit to any development. I know some people tend to skip this step, but I think that's a mistake. Get the first draft working and get it working quickly, because what that actually does is shows the teams that actually something can happen, something can change, and actually this problem is solvable. And then you get the iterative process that follows that, and that's a good thing, because it means that people are starting to input and think, well, actually, this is going in the direction I thought, but I just want a little bit of tweaking. And most of all, if you make a decision to do something, stick by it with conviction, because you will go through some pain, but ultimately there's a win at the back end of that. And I must admit, here at Marketing Solutions, you know, we've built a portal at the moment, which has again been challenging some of the way we and some of our clients work, in bringing a very hybrid approach to weaving our applications and their applications into one user experience. So, you know, we're quite agnostic whether it's their DAM or our DAM, but actually we'll put it straight into the portal. So again, thinking a bit holistically about how we can make the most of all our applications together. So that's it from me, really. Thanks very much for listening. I wish you all well and keep safe over the coming months. I'll hand back to Isabelle, who I think has about 150 slides waiting for you. Only joking, Isabelle. And maybe speak a little bit later if there are any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you so much for sharing with us your experience about automation. I've noticed 3 things which are quite important in your speech. So the first one, this is a way to onboard people or to identify the champion. I like the way you describe it, the way you to identify the people, and this is a key point in a successful project, people. The second thing I also identify, this is the way you are recommending to first conduct discovery, to identify process that can be automated, and last but not least, the most important, this is start doing things and addressing simple solution to solve day-to-day problem, and of course to measure your ROI. And in your case, you just get it in a very simple way. The best return of investment is the time you spend or the time you are saving. So it's a very interesting talk you were sharing with us today. But I think now it's time to move to Florent and to get a little bit more from Florent's experience. So Florent, now you should get the control of the computer. So if you want, It's over to you.
Hello, Isabelle. Thank you. Hi, everybody. I'm Florent Epaud. I'm solution manager. I'm a solution project manager at DALIM Software. And before joining DALIM, I had a 15 years experience in data publishing and automation. And I launched more than 500 automation projects, mainly for advertising agencies, working for retail, fashion, travel, and industrial companies. And I totally agree with what Mark said just before. Human is the core of everything. But we also need tools, and I will try not to be too technical, but to show some tangible example of what automation can be. I would like to start with a quote from Larry Page, founder of Google. Everybody knows him. He said, "I've always believed that technology should do the hard work, so users can do what makes them happiest. And that means making our product work together seamlessly." And I think this quote is exactly what everybody is looking for, to transform technical tools to easy to use workflows. And to make it fluent, we need two ingredients: processes and data flows. Processes define how people interact when action occur, in which order. In parallel, and data flow is how the data, I mean text, images, prices, come at the right moment in the right place. And for both, like again Mark said just before me, it has to be kept as simple as possible. So it's easy to set up, easy to understand for everybody, easy to maintain. So you can adapt it to your needs as they evolve. So it's an innovation loop. And the best tool to centralize these two aspects of automation in case of creative operations is a DAM. What is a DAM? A DAM is the heart, the core of the exchange in a company. It's a centralized platform that streamlines the graphic information flow. Its basic functionality is to store the files and to make them accessible. It uses also APIs to communicate between the different company ecosystems and centralize all the assets in a unique place. Here you can see some common tools that will connect with the DAM. But of course, you can connect any kind of software, including internally developed tools. Here we have BIM, ERP, suppliers, CRM. But advanced DAM provide workflows, provide automations, and right management that will help to fine-tune the process even better. For example, the process can send a notification to the right person at the right moment, and it can also create automatically many documents from a master one. There is many examples. We will see 3. So what are the key points to set up automation using a DAM? I think the main point is to think process. Almost every documented process can be automated. The goal is to define what are the inputs and outputs of every project stakeholder or every tool involved in the process. And automate repetitive tasks means more time for creative tasks. That does not mean humans do not work at all, but that they can spend more time on doing the clever part of the job, to be creative, to take decisions, and not managing technical problems or sending mails all the time. And all this increases repeatability. That means also increased quality of the work you produce. Quality of the document that will be more consistent, and quality of the work with more time to concentrate on the content. Another key point is that workflows allow to store and share the knowledge because processes became reliable tools you can count on. And at the end, I want to say again, keep it simple, like Mark. Okay, some key points. I will give you 4 key points for automation. First, centralize all assets, images, text, documents, but don't duplicate them. The DAM is for graphical assets. The PIM is for marketing text. The ERP is for product prices, availability, and so on. Every tool is on, every object is on tool. Point 2, structures information. That means that all assets should have at least one associated metadata that allow to link it to the other tools. And so retrieve related content like associated product name, color variants, name of the project. And then it will allow you, point 3, to streamline the data using IDs. That means using SKU, project ID, whatever, with the APIs, connecting to other tools, allowing to retrieve up-to-date information. That is what breaks the silos and avoid duplicate content everywhere, because the links will allow instant access to content. On point 4, identify processes that can be automated. And start with the one that can be easily automated, and also the process that brings value to your company. Mark just made a brilliant presentation about it, so I will not tell more on the topic, but I will show you 3 tangible examples of automation that can apply in most companies and bring immediate ROI. So the first one will be, as first example, a very simple and standard validation process. An approval workflow in the framework of a project stakeholders working online. So with multiple approvals involved in the process. Okay, so it's a very simple and standard validation process that can apply to all kinds of documents, from graphic design to contract document. We start from a job form, where you input your brief, you define your brief, and the people chosen for every role involved in the future notifications. The document is then uploaded on the DAM platform. People are automatically notified and then can connect to the platform, discuss about it, discuss online, that means annotate the document online, and then validate or refuse it. Once validated, the document is distributed on target platforms, for example, to specific people or a printer. I will now show you a short video that will show how it can look like for real. So here we are in a DAM. We receive an email with a link, and we can see we have access to both revision of the document. So I can compare this. Annotation of the previous version appear with different colors for different people. There is different ways to compare the document. We are here in overlay mode. So we will switch to compare mode, and the differences will blink in green. So you can concentrate only to verify the differences. Then we can switch to side-by-side mode. So in side-by-side, we can zoom on the details and see the 2 versions together. And we use here pixel streaming technology that allows real-time zoom, even in high-definition images, even in a web browser with a standard connection. Here you can see the small BMV that was written on the button. So this simple workflow, very simple workflow, is easy to set up. It's standard at DALIM. And it can be very useful, especially in those days with a lot of people working from home. And it helps to maintain the continuity in the validation workflow, even if everybody is working remotely. The main benefits is to minimize the risk by automating the approval cycle. Emails are sent automatically. Review is very simple, using a web link that you can click in your email. Annotations are stored in the system. Version management is automatic, and every previous revision is accessible. The process avoids misspelling and manual error, because we have text detection in PDF, so you don't have to rewrite the annotation to apply a correction. Traceability. You have access at any time to an audit trail. You can download the history of document versions, the history of annotations. We have automatic version comparison, you just see. That drives automatically the right people at the right time to the document. And at the end, we have the brand consistency. A unique point of truth to retrieve the document, its history, annotations, and validations. Now we will see a second example, more data publishing oriented. It's an automated multilingual production for different kind of production, catalogs, 3D for e-commerce site, packaging. In the context of a marketing team working for multiple brands, they need to increase both quality and quantity and produce for local markets. So some numbers. These are real numbers from a company I work with in the field of travel and leisure. Their production were growing on at year 0. The project is not started. They are still in manual production. They were producing 150 projects for one brand with 35 designers full time. The production phase lasts 6 to 8 months. In year 1, they did the same kind of work, but for 3 different brands. So with 3 different designs, but same kind of projects. In this example, projects are a catalog and some packaging, some 3D, some all together for one project. So they achieved to do 450 catalogs in 6 months. The team was 25 designers full-time, on scale to 75 at the final for the last 2 months of productions. In year 2, the processes were all in production mode and the full automation for both processes and data flows. And they achieved to produce 2,100 projects, the same kind of project, for 6 brands, 5 languages, with only 15 designers on 3 months productions. Let's see a global schema of the process. So here you can see the DAM frame in orange, where this is where the main process is driven. Everything starts from the ERP, where the product manager creates the product selection and product specification. It's outside the PIM. So then that starts both the request to suppliers for content and to the DAM for the design process. It creates the job. Then the supplier text flow fills the PIM for marketing text that are adjusted, then translated if needed. The draft is created automatically from template that allow verification of marketing text and translations. Then the creative team adds all the visual content, the cover, the ads. And then there is the robot. The robot, it's the main automation step, which is based on InDesign and generates all contents. To give you an idea, the full data publishing lasts approximately 1 hour and is done in background by your robot, where it was 4 days before automation on year 0. And for every project, the project produces 2 versions of the catalog, one of 150 pages and the other of 400 pages, including indexes, summaries, and automatic positioning on maps. Plus, it generates the cover, numbers of the covers, the packaging, and a lot of variants of the cover and the packaging used on the web, with the website or sent to partners like 3D view, web cover, thumbnails. All the documents are generated by Adobe InDesign, so you can always have the source document to do some makeup. So the very last step in the DAM frame is the manual makeup of the pages and include a validation, as seen in the previous example. So this is a huge ROI. What does this process do? So this process gives automatic document generation with no need of manual edition, but you can always modify by hand if needed. And at the end of the day, less risk of error. That means easy scalability. Aiming at producing very quickly automatic variants, localization, A/B testing, the logic is that you create a template for a master document, it becomes a reference and can be filled by variable content. That allows to reuse your design instead of recreating the document every time. The same process can finally be used for automated personalization. And so the end user can reuse the same template to generate their personalized, up-to-date marketing materials. it greatly improves brand consistency and speed up creative tasks. Brand consistency, it's important to be able to quickly update your marketing materials. In fact, all your marketing materials should look the same if you change the brand guidelines. And it's only possible if you can handle the scalability with your team and your tools. And that's what we are talking about. Now, yeah, and if you have any question about it, you can put it into the question. Well, then third example will be online personalization. This is an online personalization tool embedded in a website. The frame here is a company that wants to increase quality at the job creation step and to be able to produce ready-to-use content for a very specific printer usage. So this very nice example of personalization workflow is the one created for Louis Vuitton called Mon Monogram. This is an online tool where the user can parameter its bag to select the monogram he wants to print on the bag and the colors of the product. So we have a small video here. So you can find this video on the website. Louis Vuitton is a company where the product personalization exists from the very beginning. Today, this online tool allows the customer to personalize his style and color of the stripes, and also the monogram that will be printed on the product. You can choose your letters. You can decide the colors of the inside. And they automated the way they take the brief through their website, and at the end of the process, a full ready-to-print document is generated directly to the workshop. Up here on the left, you can see what a job ticket can look like in their website. In fact, it's a brief to take. On the right, the result displayed to the client. It's a web view for the customer, so he can choose the number of the stripes, 2 or 3 stripes, the color of the inside, and of course, the monogram. And after confirmation, some high-definition documents are generated and sent to the workshop, where it will be used directly on the manufacturing machine. And this process can be used from mass personification to very specific ones in B2B or B2C. So what this kind of process brings? Quality, of course, because quality is consistent, scalability, and the right message to the right audience. Here, for example, on the website, if you go using different language, you will see a slightly different website with slightly different options for Chinese, for English people, for French people, because it's different markets. It reduces time to market, of course, because once the brief is taken here, you have something ready to print. And it gives also more time to focus on creativity. And also, it brings the possibility to measure the performance and allow continuous innovation of the process. And at the end, it increases the ROI. And it's pretty much what I wanted to share with you today. So I could speak a lot about automation and creative operations, but we have some limited time and I think I'm already late. So thank you for listening and stay safe. Isabelle?
Thank you, Florent. Thank you so much for sharing with us your experience, your 15 years experience on automation for marketing teams. Yeah, you outlined 3 interesting cases actually, and there's one I really like. The first one you were outlining about approval workflow. I had this week an exchange with one of our customers who explained me that since everybody was working from home, they had a lot of problem to do some approval because they couldn't get access to the GMG Epson proof in the office. So what they simply decided to do, this was to spread the number of people using the DAM, the ES-DAM system, and they just started to do the same kind of approval workflow you were showing us. So it's really real life, and they told me it was really helping them and making the job. So what will be interesting is the way people will keep working on it after this change. So from Mark and your presentation, Florent, I think we can drop this guideline here on the screen. So I would outline these 3 things which have to be taken into account. The first one, this is first to centralize the asset, to categorize the people, to categorize the user rights, and to make sure that you have on board the right ingredient for the next step. Then the second thing is to be able to conduct the discovery and map the different workflows and identify which workflows can be automated. And then to finalize, this is to move on to automation and to focus on simple cases and get the ball rolling and incrementing the process. I think now we pretty much reached the end of this presentation, so we still have a few more minutes for questions. So let me go through our question panel and see which kind of question we have. Yes, I think, yeah, we have one question here. I think maybe how managing people reluctancy against automation, and if they feel threatened. Mark, maybe this one is for you, because you were talking about the way to engage and to onboard people. Maybe you want to answer this one?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Ah, good, sorry, just checking. Well, I think the way we sort of approached that over the years is, I think Florent touched on that a little bit just now, is, by freeing up people from the tedium, effectively we can move them on to other things and to perhaps take a more interesting take on the job. So in other words, do more interesting stuff. So that's one of the ways that we've certainly tackled it. And of course, the other one is if you are automating stuff and you're in a business that's increasing its footprint in the market, hopefully there's more work coming in, so you're not having to employ more people. So that, there's lots of triggers around that. But effectively, what you're trying to do is free up people to spend more quality time on what they're doing. That may be QA, that may be more creative thinking about what they're doing. So yeah, I think there's different ways of trying to mitigate, perhaps a little bit of insecurity around that.
Okay, so let me go through the list of questions that we have here. Which kind of company profile can automation be applied? Maybe this one is for you, Florent, as you were telling that you were participating to many projects. So you want to answer this one?
Can you repeat the question?
Which kind of company profile can automation be applied?
I think all kind of companies can use automation. I know companies of 3 people doing 3 versions of 2,000 pages catalogs, and there are 3. But they have a good tool, they have a good process, and they handle it because everything is automated, and they only have to fund people to give access to the tool, and it works. And it can also work for a huge company. In fact, you don't have to be big to have to set up automation, to set up processes.
Okay. Yes. What UDAM or PIM native integration? I see. Do you have any UDAM or PIM integration? Maybe this one is for DALIM for us as a question. So for the, I can answer this one. So for the DAM and for the PIM native integration, we are mainly using our API to do that. Maybe a last question, because it's starting to, we start to run late. What are the best KPIs? The must-have one based on your experience. Maybe Mark and you also, Florent, you may want to answer this one. What are the best KPI you would recommend to get?
Do you want to go?
What are the best KPIs? Maybe Mark? I can't answer, but I think Mark, you were better than me explaining that. So I'm curious of what you will say.
So am I. So I think that's tricky to answer because I think it depends on the scenario, and each scenario covers different risks and rewards. So if I go back to the example of 5,000 jobs a week with a 1 hour and 4 hour deadline, that was around turnaround times and SLAs. In other words, we couldn't have done it any other way, you know. So that, if I take that example, the first lever is definitely the turnaround time to be able to meet SLAs. If I take other examples, it might be around just reducing the probability of error, because clearly that's something that we're all trying to avoid, because with paid media that comes at a cost and there's risk associated with it. And with other scenarios and KPIs, it may be just simply trying to meet a price point, because, you know, as we said, the market's tightened up. Most companies are carrying less resources, whether that's client side or production side, than they were a few years ago. So actually trying to meet a price point determines whether or not automation helps you solve that issue. So I think it depends on what the scenario is.
Okay, so thank you, Mark. I think we will hand it up this session here. So we have almost reached the end of this webinar. There's still a video I would like to play for you, but before playing it, I would like to thank you, Mark, again, Florent again, for sharing with us your experience and knowledge today. I also want to thank all of you for joining us today. You were very numerous people joining us today, and it's really great to get your support. I wish to all of you an excellent end of the day and an excellent 1st of May, and above all, keep safe. So don't forget to register and participate to our Do On Air next week, Do More with Less, on the 5th of May, and enjoy this last video for now. So let me now start this video for you. Bye bye everybody, and thank you again.